Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Dig on America, where we speak truth to power. Every week, we give you the dig on how American history, policies, and media created the social and political issues we face today. DOA is independent media supported by listeners.
It is Black History Month, and for Black History Month, what I have done is I have for the next 3 weeks, we're going to kind of take a tour here, and we're going to go through, from like a 4-minute.
It is tour. The dig,
but we're going to go through. We're going to start this week with Reconstruction. We're going to move to the Great Migration the week after that, and then we're going to talk about a couple of figures. Within, in fact, I'm looking at the NAACP versus Marcus Garvey. I think is interesting to talk about.
Oh man!
So we'll do that the next 3 weeks, consecutively. So as we move through histories here, so I do want to have a profile next week for an individual, but I just didn't have time today, so I apologize. But maybe there's someone House will just pick and focus on because he knows everything. So let's get into it now. My 8th grade social studies teacher,
Mr. Humble,
taught me things that turns out after doing my own research wasn't exactly the whole story. And this week we will dive into the topic of Reconstruction as part of our Black History Month focus. Textbooks generally focus on the Reconstruction era as the period immediately after the Civil War and extending until about 1877, otherwise known as the year Joe Biden was born. During this time frame, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were ratified. The Southern states pledged allegiance to the U.S. flag. The slaves were effectively freed. The nation attempted to remake itself through provisions and programs which, along with the amendments, meant all people had civil rights. This led us to the Cosby Show, Obama, Beyonce, and the Hodge twins, and everyone is super happy, and we're all equal. And there's your history lesson.
Good show.
Well, the truth is that just because the South lost the war, that doesn't mean that they viewed blacks as equals. And it doesn't mean that this happened in the North either, as we will discover over the next couple of weeks. W.E.B. Du Bois described this period as with this quote, "The slave went free, stood a moment in the sun, and then moved back towards slavery." And by the way, Tony, if you want to pause me at any point to make a comment, just yell out pause. So essentially, the federal government, the idea was with Reconstruction that the federal government would intervene to ensure Black Americans could transition into life as citizens as safely and effectively as possible. Nowadays, of course, movements such as this are affectionately referred to as communism by the colorblind right wing. The issue was that white landowners lost their land, and thanks to William T. Sherman, often their land due to Sherman's Scorched Earth campaign, known as Field Order 66.
I just watched a video about that and how that's kind of a misnomer. But hopefully I'm not getting ahead of you.
No, but you can elaborate that on this. It actually wasn't 66. That was Palpatine.
No.
But
I just was watching a video about how historically, in proper context, it wasn't necessarily a scorched earth campaign. It's kind of been framed like that from the lost cause side of explaining it.
Well, so one of my sources for this week was I used Crash Course Black American History for a good bulk of this. And by the way, that podcast is fantastic, or not podcast, that video is fantastic. And I double check a lot of sources on this stuff, and it appears to be that that's pretty solid history, that he went from Savannah to Atlanta and back and forth within Georgia, for the most part, burning plantations. And he did. And by the way, it wasn't Field Order 66. Again, that was Palpatine. This was Field Order 15. Sherman believed that redistributing the land was important because it both punished the former Confederate landowners while providing the freedmen with the land and resources they would need to begin a new life in a post-war South. 5 days after Lee surrendered to Grant, Lincoln was assassinated on the same day that he started the Secret Service. And the very much racist Andrew Johnson pardoned the Confederates and gave all the land back with no strings attached. Congress, which was Republican and the party of the left at the time, led by Thaddeus Stevens, impeached Johnson, but failed to remove him.
Great uncle Thaddeus Stevens before they put the sun on it.
Before they put the sun on the good old Thaddeus. They impeached Johnson, but much like Trump, failed to remove him from office. But they did pen 3 amendments key to the era. The 13th Amendment, this freed the slaves officially, but only freed slaves in the rebelling states, not everywhere. It's important to note a particular clause in the 13th Amendment that reads, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, shall exist within the United States. And by the way,
what happened within 5 years of that?
Well, and by the way, anybody wants to get deeper into that, we covered this in our episode 6-7 months ago about private prisons. But Haas, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
I was just saying within, I think it was 5 to 7 years. Let's just say the makeup of the prison population did this.
It grew like Trump's hands.
No, it switched. It switched from 92% white to like 95% black.
Well, and
like
it also increased. And you would get so a little side note to that. This wasn't in the dig, but just from my own memory, so hopefully I get this right. There were a lot of sharecroppers, and sharecropping, the way that sharecropping worked, I think I'll talk about this more next week, was you basically the owner of the previous plantation owner would lease out like the equipment and the land and everything to the sharecropper. Mm-hmm. So they were constantly in debt to the landowner, right? Mm-hmm. And if they didn't bring back enough crops, they said, well, you owe us more with interest.
And sometimes if they did, they figured out
they would go to jail.
Yep.
They would go to debtor's prison. Sorry. Were you saying something?
I was saying that, they would always find a way to say, oh, that's not enough. Oh, because we provided you clothes and we provided the shack or the home that you lived in, and we provided the tools, and that cost this much. And also because a lot of these people weren't literate or schooled in math, they kept them, in debt, or they sent them to debtor's prison. You're correct.
Yeah, and which grew the prison population. So the 14th Amendment was adopted in 1868 and addressed citizenship. It reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States. And it also says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the rights of a citizen of the United States, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law, which apparently doesn't hold true in Georgia or Texas. While that seems pretty straightforward, it has not always been equally enforced. The 15th Amendment, passed in 1870, gave black men the right to vote, men only. It reads, the right of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, previous condition of servitude, just where you live. In order to enforce the 3 amendments and protect black people's rights from rights, we got the Freedmen's Bureau, a coalition of Northern officials and Union soldiers, possibly including a young Joe Biden, was set up. Many Southern states hated the idea of formerly enslaved people having these rights, so it was necessary to send federal troops to enforce the law. The Freedmen's Bureau was tasked with helping newly freed black people make a life for themselves. And they had a few ways of doing this. They legally recognized marriages, even those performed only by actions like jumping the broom. The Bureau helped to reunite families that had been separated during slavery. Kids in cages rings a bell. And secured work contracts, a role at which they were not so great. Many black Americans were forced into contracts to become sharecroppers, which I already talked about, meaning they were pushed right back into the arms of the enslavers they had just escaped from. Additionally, the Freedmen's Savings Bank was created to help the formerly enslaved. Tragically, the Freedmen's Savings Bank shut down after about 9 years, and the money of tens of thousands of depositors, equaling about $3 million, which today, I believe on that math would be about 40 to 80 billion.
You said 3
Essentially,
million?
it was 3 million at the time. Yeah.
And what year was it?
This would have been in about 1868
Hold on, I'll find that thing.
that
Hold
was
on.
set up.
I'm looking.
So the this money, when the bank went upside, went belly up, essentially disappeared. And it happened to be that dollar amount was more than half of the accumulated black wealth in the United States. So the Freedmen's Bureau, by the way, would have gone defunct around 1877, 1879. The Bureau, though, did do a pretty good job in assisting Black Americans with their pursuit of formal education. Turns out Black people were pioneers in advocating for public schools as vehicles of upward mobility.
Got it.
Got it. What is it?
58,901,830,099
Don't forget that 99 cent.
It's right there. Just right there.
One of the most important aspects of Reconstruction was the active participation of African Americans, including thousands of formerly enslaved people, into the political sphere. During the 10-year Reconstruction, or 12, 13-year Reconstruction period, some 2,000 African Americans held public office, from the local level all the way up to the United States Senate. These two senators were Hiram Revels, I'm not sure which it is, and Blanche Kelso Bruce. Yes, it is. I knew it was Blanche. I don't know why I said Blanche. and Blanche from
Blanche from the Golden Girls.
No, oh yeah, for Golden Girls. I was thinking of Facts of Life. That was Blair though. Blanche Kelso Bruce.
Tootie any day. Give me Tootie.
All four of them actually.
Go ahead, Regine.
Well, not Natalie. Anyway, of course today. No, so again, now keep that in mind. You had two Black senators in the 1860s. Of course, today we far exceeded that number with a whopping 50% more Black senators, 3.
Right.
There were also 40 Blacks elected to Congress, which we've also blown away that number today with a whopping. Never mind. On to the next. One of the main subjects of the conversation among new Black politicians surrounded the 14th and 15th Amendments and whether there was room for women in the sphere of politics. And by the way, if you know what politics is, it has nothing to do with law. Politics is how law is distributed, not necessarily the making law. So this was a distribution conversation. Blacks dominated the population in the South and saw their political power flourish in the 1860s and 1870s, but also faced. Say again?
I said, can't have that.
No, that's why they faced white supremacist opposition, mostly from the KKK. In the presidential election of 1876, Democrat Samuel Tilden of New York earned 184 electoral votes, which was only one less than was required to be named president. Republican Rutherford B. Hayes of Ohio got 165, so 19 less. However, election results in Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina were disputed due to the shady motives and corruption of the Dominion voting machines and trucks dumping votes in the middle of the night. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong election. I apologize. Alongside of this, there was an electoral issue in Oregon. There was 20 electoral votes that would decide the election in what became known the Compromise of 1877. Hayes ended up being, though he got less votes, elected president on the condition that the remaining Union soldiers would be withdrawn from the South. This meant that there would be no more federal protection for Black Americans there, and millions of Black people now felt abandoned. Soon after the troops left, Reconstruction failed, or should we say, was overthrown by white supremacy. White Southerners did everything they could to thwart Black mobility and opportunity. The U.S. could have gone in a different direction. It could have provided land and resources and opportunity to millions of Black people to begin to build a life for themselves after 250 years of bondage. It could have gave them resources that would have at least attempted to account for the generations of exploitation that Blacks suffered. Instead, the land went back to those the U.S. gave it to the first time, Joe Biden. So there is your dig for today. I want to start with Big Haas, and we'll just circle around and just, how does this impact us today, Big Haas?
Land. Think about it. What is the what has been and always is one of the primary drivers of building generational wealth? Land.
Property ownership. Property ownership.
Property ownership. You got the land, you've got a large modicum of the power. You know, you can use the land, you can develop the land, you can sell the land, you can take out a loan against the land to send your kid to college so he could become a dentist and thereby improve his lot or her lot in life. You know, so land is the great stepping stone. And then you think about how the terrorization of any black person who dared venture into politics stigmatized politics for a lot of generations to come. You know, James wants to be a congressman when he grows up, but Betty remembers how Roger got strung up for desiring or even getting elected into Congress or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well,
So-
Betty's just mad at Veronica because she's dating Archie.
Well, Betty. Well, in some means Betty and Veronica are.
I told you they go into Tony. I'm sorry, they go into this old head talk all the goddamn time. And I just gotta sit here and nod.
Yep.
Gotcha. Why gotta be old head talk? You're not up on your history
Archie,
like you should be.
Archie,
just because we were around during Reconstruction, because we're that old, doesn't mean.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Archie comics, come on, bro.
Joe Biden babysat for us.
I'm a Ninja Turtle kid. You got to hit me with something fresher than fucking Archie.
There's a lot of stigmas that grow out of the terrorization that people were put under. So from generation to generation is, hey, don't do that, don't say this, da 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 da, for fear, and then that gets handed down, and that just contributes to generational traumas and things of that nature, and people getting pulled out of their home and their homes burned and everything because they desire to vote or desire to take a political office or desire to try to buy some land even. So I just think that once again, politics reigns supreme, and this compromise was made because, people don't want to talk about it, but a lot of people in the North, they view blacks as second-class citizens too. So because these people didn't view blacks as worthy necessarily anyway, that compromise is able to be made, where we're going to take troops out of the South that are enforcing the law, because who are they protecting, and how do we view in our hearts of hearts who is being protected?
I think it's always the stuff that's protected. It's the money that's protected.
It's always property over people.
Yeah,
every time.
Unless certain people.
Tony,
so if
thoughts?
I could, I'd like to go back to what Big Hoss said about the property and land. I mean, that's what it's always about anyways. I mean, and when they first started doling out who's going to vote, I mean, it was like white male property owners, right? Like, right. Because they wanted exclusive rights to vote because they want to keep all the fucking property. They don't want to vote anyone in that's going to take away their property. Right. And he made a good point when he's talking about, wealth and that generational gap between wealth, because when you do own property and you do have and it's not necessarily real estate, right? Like everyone gets that land and property and all that stuff mixed. I mean, property not only brings you the ability to own land, but it gets you the ability to own equity and other things, stock, bonds. I mean, that's all property, right? And that's all land, essentially. We still have this land complex. The Republicans are like, look at the map. Look how much land voted for Donald Trump, as if land still votes. Like they still have this mentality, right? they still have the land mentality, which is not exactly the mentality or the reality today.
That's a very good point.
It was then, but that mentality still lives inside of this culture that we have of the power structure. So what he's saying, though, about property, whether it be real estate or stocks or bonds, vehicles for that matter, when you can leverage that property and that equity more than anything, because owning a piece of property is different than having it mortgaged at the bank, right? But they not only own the property, they own the mortgages as well, right? So that's the mortgages are pieces of property. Like all this stuff, when you live in this society that's built for white males that own property, it's not just real estate and land, it's all that stuff. But the ability to take your equity and to pass it to a different generation other than just an inheritance, right? Where you can leverage the things that you own, the property that you own, to get someone a better education, to get them to a different part of the country where they can be something different or they can expand their equity, right? Whether that be through art, science, physical work, construction, whatever that may be. And for so long in this country, we held certain people, black people, down from actually having that equity, because we talk about equality a lot, right? And everyone wants equality, but more than equality, we need equity. We need equity in this country, and we need the ability for people to have equity. Now, you can go down different roads with that, but ultimately that should be our goal, is not just equality, but equity as well, because I think he's right where he made the example where you use your real estate and you take a loan so your child can go to a school to be a dentist. That way they can grow up, have nice income, and they can buy more property, right? So they buy stocks and bonds. They buy a house. Now they might have rental property. They might own more cars. They might own whatever it may be, stocks, bonds, investments, and to increase their property, increase their equity inside the country. I don't think a lot of people are greedy, right? I
disagree.
We look at
categorically, I disagree.
Well, so I'll push back on that a little bit. There are fucks in this country that are greedy as shit, but I think most people just want decent health care, they want a decent wage, they want a decent place to live, and they want a decent life for their kids, right? Like this is the middle class, the American dream type thing that we've been sold all this time. But when you really look at Reconstruction and you look at the inequality, but more importantly than equity of what Haas was talking about, is that in this country, white people who look like me, who sound like me, who grew up in places that I grew up, they don't want to give up their privilege, quote unquote. That's how which they don't think it's privilege, right? Because
they want to give up the privilege they deny having.
Right, which equality, well, that's why they know they have it. Equality to the oppressors feels like oppression, right? Like that's where they go to. That's
say
where
that
they
word.
Right, that's where they go to. So
this man is preaching.
So here's the thing. So black people in this country are the most patriotic people in this country. And I'll tell you why. It's because black people wanting equality and equity, you're just fucking lucky, white dude, white cracker, that they don't want fucking revenge. And so that shit. So that is what is, and I try to say this out loud as much as I possibly can, and I want to say it to more people who look like me, who sound like me, who are from places that I'm from, and the reason why is because they really don't understand it, because the thing that they're scared of, the reason why they say racist shit, like we were talking earlier about what Joe Rogan says, the reason why is because they've never actually sat down face to face, belly to belly, and ask a black person, why can't I say the N-word? They've never asked someone. Why can't
but what's worse though, and Haas and Mikey, I'm sure will jump on this immediately.
What
is they surround themselves with their show ponies.
Oh yeah,
who say that it's okay.
You mean like Herman, Candice Owens, Christian Walker, Larry Elder,
the Hodge twins, the Hirsch twins.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's this shit where they use because this is the thing, and I was talking about this in a space the other day. there's something called the ADOS. Now, I don't know their motivations. I don't know who they're funded by, but ultimately what they're doing in essence is they're telling black people you shouldn't vote because it doesn't matter anyways. Like, what the fuck? Like, as if democracy is going to deliver you less equity, is going to deliver you less equality. Now, I'm not saying we're to the point to where we need to be in this country where we can all quote unquote get along.
That
But
was, by the
what I
way,
am
that was,
saying-
by the way, the Booker T. Washington philosophy to a degree.
Well, right, but what I'm saying about the ADOS in the timeline that we're in the space that we're in right now in history, is that if we let groups like that ideology, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, if we let it seep into people's minds in a way that the Candice Owens stuff leaks into white people's minds, because here's what white people think when they see Candice Owens, they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I love to watch that black person bash black people because she
makes
does what
me feel
that's
comfortable.
Right. Yeah,
Wow,
right.
she's
She makes me feel
intelligent.
good.
She's so eloquent.
Right. She's pretty and all that bullshit. But it's the same way with Christian Walker. You know, he's a gay
I don't
black
take
man.
the colors. I don't take the colors, but that Candace Owens, she's a looker, ain't
She's a
she?
good one. I wouldn't marry her, but pow!
I'd rather kiss her.
Well, I
No,
mean, I wouldn't bring her home to daddy. I wouldn't bring her home to daddy, but I
Right.
definitely, right.
I
wouldn't
definitely call her when the lights was out and nobody
That's
was
right.
looking around.
But I mean, that's the whole. We're still living with this, and for white people to act like this isn't, they put up that map all the time. Back to the property thing, they're like, look at all the land that voted for Trump. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything?
What's the population of those people in that land?
They do it, but it's a great, but that goes back to the messaging, right? Because we know that the Republicans for president, at least since I've been voting, I started voting in 1992. One time in my voting lifetime has a Republican won the popular vote. One time. It happened in 1988, and then and since 1988, it hasn't happened again until it didn't happen again until 2004. And that's the only time. 2004 is the only time since I've been voting, and I'm 47, that the Republicans have won that. But then they know this, but what they'll do is they'll take that map, and what they do is it kind of looks like a Verizon map, right? Because it's got all the red everywhere with a couple of areas of blue.
Now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Good. And they put it up there and they say, America is conservative. And then when you look at that, being a dumbass or just being, willfully ignorant, you say, oh yeah. Not thinking that the areas where there are mountains and 0 people live, they've got colored red.
It's 17 people in that whole area, and they make it. Oh, look at all of this.
Yeah, you can wrap up your thought. I apologize.
Well, can I give you some thoughts on what you just said about the messaging and the see the map and the dumb fucks that see this. The great part about it is it is a small percent. It's a large number of people, right? Like if you look at it, like, goddamn, there's millions of people who have bought this shit, this fucking garbage, but it's a small percentage, right? And states out there that we deem as red are much bluer than we think. I mean, you look at Georgia, what happened in Georgia just in the 2020 race. If you look at the numbers from the general election, Warnock and Ossoff were supposed to lose those runoffs. They were going to lose those motherfuckers. And the reason why they didn't is because Trump sowed doubt with their fucking bullshit big lie. And it's going to play a role and an effect in 2022, I believe. Now, how big of a role, I don't know. We need to not count on it, but it's going to play a role because they're going to sow these seeds of doubt. Like, Democrats are going to win no matter what. But, that's their game here because they're not thinking 2022. They're thinking way ahead of us, right? Like, Democrats are like 2022 and the Democratic coalition thinking 2022. They're thinking 2030, 2032, 2034, right? That's their game. That's how they've always played the long game. But if you look at the map that they sell to the quote unquote dumb fucks, it's such a small percentage that I really think that as Democrats, as a big tent, and you go to the messaging, if you can walk away from shit like Medicare for all, Build Back Better, these fucking universal pre-K, universal health care, public option, this fucking shit that's already been bought, sold from these people, that it's socialism and then it's bad. If you walk away from that shit and you actually get some fucking messaging that is populist messaging, but it's directed in a way that is to the majority of the ideology in this country, because I believe that's the majority that we need to be talking to, not Democrat, Republican. Most people want reasonable gun control. Most people want decent fucking health care, whatever the fuck that means. Most people want a decent fucking wage, whatever the fuck that means. And most people want to retire earlier than the retirement age now, whatever the fuck that means. But it doesn't matter what it means, because if we don't make sure that we have pro-democracy people inside Congress and inside the Senate and also inside our state houses and our city governments, our fucking school boards, if we don't have those people in there to fight those fights for us, fuck, we've already lost. So quit. What we need to do with the messaging, and the map thing is good messaging, right? On their side, they've really done that up. But if we can get that messaging out and we can get it into the brains of, the mass ideology, right? Not Democrat, Republican, or whatever it is. If we can get that into the minds of the mass ideology, because I believe that the reason why we have the strikes we have is not because we're divided. It's because the majority of the country wants this to be governed in a certain way. And the minority ideology, right? The minority thought process of how to govern is governing in a lot of places, and it's pissing people off. Rather, they realize it's Democrat, Republican, or whatever. It's just pissing them the fuck off, because Trump convinced people that, hey, I'll fix healthcare. He did that. He fucking convinced large swaths of white people that would vote for fucking Bernie Sanders in a heartbeat for Medicare for all and his messaging. They would vote for him in a heartbeat. He convinced them that he would fix it.
Yeah,
he's a lying sack of shit.
He mirrored that populism.
That's right. Now, populism isn't always good when you govern, but it's a hell of a lot of good when you politics.
Yeah, it's good for it's great for campaigning. Mikey, close us off on this, brother.
I wish I had more to say, but this sounds like an American problem. Canada, I know you got some troubles over there in Ottawa, but I'm trying to get across that southern border of yours. Whenever you will take me, I'm ready to come home, my real home, my forever home.
That I've never been to.
Vancouver. Like I not that this is a doomcast and all we talk about is bad shit. But whenever we talk about this history shit, it just reminds me of how far we think we like all these years of all these events that we're talking about. It's not that long ago.
No,
some of the people that like voted for this stuff, they just got out of office. Their kids are still around. You know what I'm saying? Like my parents' generation, like they were around for a lot of this stuff. And it's like, and y'all don't even tell the fucking kids this shit. You know what I mean? Like education is so batshit crazy, whitewashed that I don't know that there is a solution for this. Unless you can get somebody in a space where I have to sit you down for 45 minutes and explain the history of what I'm talking about to you. But you can't do that in social media.
You can't. They'll just yell over you that you're lying.
And it's just, it's almost like we're at this spot now where it's just like, whoever is the loudest and the craziest wins.
So let's be loud and crazy. Bad. That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
No, y'all can be loud and crazy. My black ass will be in Canada.
Riding dirty, loud and crazy. Any last comment, Haas, or no? Are you good?
No, I'm good. Yeah,
okay.
Man.
All right. Well, then
I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys tonight. And I know Ray isn't here, but I enjoyed hanging out with Ray and talking to him as well. So thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Why don't you real quick give we have one more segment. We do a cigar.
Oh, okay.
If you want to hang around for it, you can. If you don't, you don't have to.
I got to bounce. But you want me to do the shameless plug thing? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I want you to do the shameless plug thing.
Okay, so you can just go to thetonymichaels.com, thetonymichaels.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at the Tony Michaels. You can always follow our podcast page too at Tony Michaels Pod. Come listen to the podcast, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We do it every single weekday, noon Eastern, 11 Central for 2 hours. I go 2 hours live every single weekday. Noon Eastern, 11 Central, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. You can find all those. Just type in the Tony Michaels or Tony Michaels. You'll find the shit. You'll find it.
That's cute. I remember when I did 5 shows a week only. Yeah, that was nice.
What?
Just giving you shit.
Oh yeah. Right, man.
I appreciate the hustle.
No,
Tony
doesn't.
It's much easier. It's much easier doing. Believe it or not, it's much easier doing the 5 2-hour shows than what I was doing before. I was doing a 1 hour live stream, and then I do a 2 hour show on Wednesday, and I do like an hour show on the weekend. So now I can pack it all. What we did is we just took all our shows and we just combined them into one thing. And then you can also download it on Apple and Spotify. I'm still there. You can go download it on all those. I'm
just
still
search Joe Rogan and you'll see Tony.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Right. Hey, I let me tell you something. I would not. Of course, I'm not a name to be invited on his show, but I would gladly go down there and hand his ass to him, right in front of his face, and get it on camera and blast that shit. And I think this I'm liberal, I guess you could say. I guess I consider myself progressive, liberal, whatever you want to say. But this fucking snowflake liberal thing where they want to walk away from fights, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We are in a situation where they're at the front door and they're going to kick this son of a bitch in. And if we allow them to just do what they want to do, they're going to go in the back door. They're going to take our government away from us. They tried on January 6th, and they're going to try again if we give them a chance. So the best thing we can do is to fight where the fight is at, and the fight is in politics, not in government. We need to stop combining these two things. They are not the same. So that's my message. And so go follow me on Twitter, and you can see the shit posting that I do. I really, like in the morning, I type it in and I just smash the tweet button. So be leery of a lot of like grammar, shit that I post. But go over there. You'll be entertained by all the misspellings. Thanks, fellas, for having me. I really appreciate it.
He's the Tim Pool who Tim Pool pretends to be. But,
well, I've been called a lot of things. Rush Limbaugh, the left, Howard Stern of politics. I've been called a lot of shit. Never the Tim Pool that Tim Pool wants to be. So I guess I'll take it as a compliment.
Well, Tim Pool. That's because Tim Pool pretends to be a Democrat, and you actually are, but he also wears his hat like you do. So
yeah, I get the you look like Fred Durst. 1995 wants to look back, and I'm like,
there it is.
Listen up. Yeah, I figure,
you did it all for the nookie. We knew it.
That's right. That's what it is. Right. Well, you heard what I would prank Jennifer Aniston. So, I mean, the nookie. So
he's somewhere between Tim Pool, Mancow, and Fred Durst. We have
Tony Michaels. So. Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh, the left. I don't know what you call me. I really don't know. Someone said Ben Shapiro earlier, and I'm like, Ben Shapiro, fuck.
That's just
I'm like worlds away from that motherfucker.
No, but you talk fast, so that's what you have in common with Ben.
I do talk a little fast.
But I'll see you. I'm sure.
Don't talk fast. Motherfuckers need to listen a little faster so they can keep up.
They listen too
slow. Open the ears, Big Hoss. You're right.
Yeah, we'll see it. I'll see you in a Twitter space sooner.
Thanks a lot, fellas. Hey, have fun with your cigars. Have fun with your cigars, all right?